Okay, we're going to try doing a doodle a day on camera again. Just roughing something out. Not quite sure what this is going to be yet. See how this goes. Some contour lines in, suggest the shape. Just continuing to get all the rough proportions and the form. Being quite loose with pen lines. And then beginning just to suggest on this tyre that it's not flat surface. There's shape to it, there's form to it, there's a curvature to the sidewall. Really pays to where you can sketch live and really see some of the hidden shapes that are found in even things like tyres, and the car itself is not a flat object that has curvature in multiple directions really, and the only way of understanding that is to go and sit in a field with cars or car park and actually sketch it. There's no substitute really. Give this a bit of a shadow so it's not just floating around. Right. I'll give it suggest that back wheel. Probably come further out actually. This is a very quick sketch, not kind of measured as such. But sometimes that's the nice thing with a sketch, you can just be rough and kind of stick the proportions in some events. Maybe more than that. So we'll stick some. Yeah. Bye. Just saying goodbye to Charlotte, who's off to work. So, we just put a little bit of ground shading on the bottom. Suggest again the form, that this isn't a flat object. It really does have shape. You can have a headlamp here. Again, we're seeing the back of it, so again, just using a contour line to suggest that shape. This shadow. Contour line is very helpful just to even help as you sketch understand what you're sketching. Right, so all we're going to do is just add a very simple pastel wash, if you like, and I'm just using a regular chalk pastel. I'm rubbing it against some cotton wool so that you get a nice cotton wool full of pastel, and then just adding a bit of talcum powder to it, which just softens the pastel dust. So I'm not afraid just to kind of put it on. And then just going to use a rubber, and the rubber we use to draw some highlights. So rather than just rub out for the sake of rubbing out, we're actually using it as a drawing tool and suggesting those areas that catch the light. Just take that off, and we'll just put a little bit of fixed tip on, which helps seal that colour, but also it allows us then to put on another wall of colour once that's dried. Always worth making sure it's dry before you go then putting more pastel on, otherwise you end up with a smudgy mess. And the thing to do with pastel is just to practice. It's an old way of doing it, certainly with the advent of things like Photoshop. A lot of people stop using pastel, or they find they can't get on with it because it just makes a mess. But actually, in some ways that's the virtue of it, and I'm learning to work with it, and yeah, it's a lifelong process, I think. Anyway, so we'll just check whether that's dry. It takes sometimes a bit of time for it to dry, so don't be afraid for it to take a bit of time. Nearly there. Okay, I think we can put the next layer on. So, as you can see, just darkening it. And what I tend to do is use the other side of the same cotton wool to just rub some away of some of the pastel there, further away from the main point of the drawing, so that you can see it strong here and then fades out as the car goes away from you. And again, we just get the rubber and draw with the rubber, suggesting that curvature there. Maybe a bit of light on those wheels and the headlamp, just suggesting the screen. Make sure when you spray the fixative you have the window open, always good. And let it dry. And the big skill with pastel, I think, is learning when enough is enough. And too often I've made mistakes where I've put too much on and it's just taken away from that really nice, light, sketchy feel. Still make the mistake sometimes, it's part of the process, but it's yeah, it's the way we learn, through our mistakes as well as through our successes. Anyway, so we've just got to let that dry for a moment, and then all we're going to do is we're going to just add a bit more detail with the biro, just to some of the edges that are, some of the parts that are closest to us. We'll leave this nice and kind of fading out, so I think we'll be nearly there. And again, the thing is to be quite light with the biro, not too heavy. We're just aiming for a nice light, sketchy look to this. We don't want and again, using contour lines and just to suggest that shape, this kind of nice cigar shape that cars of this era had. And just darken some of the areas that we want to pick out. So again, the ground shadow. This kind of hidden area here where all the instruments would be, and for the sake of this sketch we're just putting that in shadow. Maybe just suggesting a wheel somewhere, but really it's that. And then what we will do is just use a white pen just to further pick out a few highlights. Nothing too much. You don't want to look like a bird has just pooed all over it, and but just some little details that just pick out. Again, make this just look a bit more real, particularly things like panel shuts where one panel comes up against the other. There's a dark line and a light line depending on where the shadow falls. Even on the tyre can pick up a bit of light. And there we go. I think we'll leave it at that. Obviously, you know, people say, oh, if only I could draw like that, or whatever. I think with all these things, it's about practice, and it's about finding people that inspire you. So I'm inspired by people like Gordon Crosby, like Stephen Marjoram, like Bob Freeman, and other people too. And you just find people that inspire you, and you learn from them, and you practice. And part of Doodle a Day for me is to keep practicing, as well as I hope to be something positive for other people out there too. So whatever you're doing today, may God bless you, may you know his peace with you and his love for you today, and particularly thinking of those who are struggling in any way today, for who today is not an easy day. Just pray God's particular peace upon you, and yeah, thanks very much.